Okay, yeah. Good evening. Welcome to Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today on Billy Sheehan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. This is super awesome. You're on. Been a big
My
fan, like
pleasure.
everyone for years. I mean, all your albums I've been listening to for years and years and years. We're going to talk about obviously TALAS, the new album, 1985, which is it's fantastic. Like it's so exciting that it's out. And actually, let's start there
Yeah.
because it's big. People are digging it. It's on the charts. Even it's good. You know.
Yeah, I'm getting just zillions of comments and emails and messages. Way more than I had anticipated. That's a pleasant surprise.
I think it feels like it's finally getting its due. I mean, really. I mean, you guys were kind of ahead of your time and you didn't get the press because there was no internet. I don't think there were power trios. It really wasn't the time for people to really grab onto it. And maybe everyone's catching up, finally.
Well, I left that band in '85, so there's not much we could do at that point. And then I think there is a real desire for the way things were in the '80s, as far as bands and music
Yeah.
goes. It was before the internet, so there was just clubs and bands, and everybody was. I remember being on Sunset Boulevard and the sidewalks being six deep with people. Just rock and roll was everywhere. Bands played everywhere. It was a great time for music and all kinds of music too, not just rock and heavy metal. There was all kinds of stuff going on, and it was a great time.
Well, and Talos wasn't really just a rock band. I felt like you had a lot of influence in you too. It wasn't just a straight ahead rock band. I don't think so. I mean, do you feel you had a lot, you showed your influences a little bit more than just being rock?
Yeah, we went over the line a couple times on a few things. As far as the early days of a copy band, we did Schizoid Man. We did uh, some adventurous material, not just straight up typical rock.
Right.
I mean, we did a version of the Tubes' "White Punks on Dope" as a three-piece with the full harmony, and no, and somehow we made up for the lack of instrumentation and personnel that the Tubes had, and we got pretty adventurous on some in some areas. It was kind of cool. So yeah, and I'm glad because stylistically that moves you in a different direction
Mhm.
instead of just playing that same thing. We were all over the map.
And I think because you guys all sang and just each of you had an instrument and sang, which your investment in the songs and the band were different because it wasn't like each one had a slot. You guys all had a shared silo. So it feels like to me the creative process was so different than a lot of bands.
Yeah, well, a lot of young players will ask me today, for advice, if you will, or just some guidance or whatever, because I've been around for a million years. And, I always tell them, get in a band. One, two, get in a band with songs. Get in a band with songs that you sing. And
Yes.
if you run the numbers of the most successful players in the world, that's what almost all of them did. Not all. Absolutes are unattainable.
It's
But
true.
almost everybody. Paul McCartney got in a band with songs he sang. Geddy Lee, band, song, sing. Lemmy, as I say, Sting,
Yeah.
every great bass player. Even Jocko, on his first solo record, had the Isley Brothers join him for a track or two. So
That doesn't
it's
suck,
really
huh?
the key, I think, to uh, reaching people. You'll see America's Got Talent or The Voice or all those shows. They generally don't have anybody but people that sing.
Right. Or strum a
I've never
guitar.
seen haven't seen a bass player on that yet.
Really, you should though. I mean, I try featuring a lot of bass players, even acoustic bass players that just sing. I've had on my show that are fantastic. Like I really try to do
But
that.
acoustic players that what?
At sing, basic acoustic bass
Oh, there
players
it
that
is.
sing. I have an artist that does that.
That's
Awesome.
my point. That's my point.
Yeah, I support
You
that. I'm
think
like,
the guy up there just play bass.
no, you need to sing, you need to
Got
do
it.
this
Sing.
stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what was so great. And I think and one of the things I think it makes me kind of crazy, I'm sure, I don't know about you, but you always hear about the note police and how were you overplaying notes, whatever. I don't think that's ever been a concept. I don't think in any bands you've ever been in, it's ever been a thing. I think that's just you play like lead bass and that's the instrument you play, and that's it. Just never been a thing. To me, looking in, I know you hear it. You know what I'm saying? It's weird.
There's no such thing as lead bass.
Well, to me, it sounds like it is because, well, you're leading. You're just as strong as an instrument. My point is like bass. People always put bass in the back. Your bass is always in the front.
On the Van Halen records, the loudest thing in the mix is the bass.
Right.
In Motown, the bass is playing more notes than if there even is a guitar in the mix at all. The bass is playing way more.
Right.
McCartney was the most melodic and moving musician in the Beatles. A little help from my friends. Bass is all over the place. It works perfectly, and nobody called him a lead bass player. He just played bass because that's what bass is. Bass moves. Unfortunately, guitarists got to a point where they can't play over changes. If a chord changes, they can't continue playing. You got to play one note for them, and then they can solo, 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 solo. The moment you move off that note, they're lost.
Right.
And in jazz, one of the main things is you got to be able to play over changes. Chord changes play, you adapt as you play. So most guitarists got to a point where you hold an E note while I solo.
Right.
If you move, you're playing lead bass, man, and I just don't agree with it. And it's a funny thing. People will come to a show, take their iPhone out and record my solo. And there's a couple of reasons for doing a solo. As far as if you were editing a movie together, you would probably put what would be the equivalent of a bass solo somewhere in there. Just in a live show, you take a little break and have a guy do something. It gives the other guys a chance to have a drink and towel off.
Right.
It also adds to the dynamics of the show. No big deal. I don't have to do a bass solo, but so they'll take the iPhone and record my bass solo and post that. And then all the comments will be all he ever does. I don't breathe, eat, or sleep, or shower, or drive my car, or rake the leaves. That's all I ever do is solo on bass. And then I said, well, for the other hour and 55 minutes of the show, I wasn't soloing.
Right.
So it turns into it's an odd thing. So for a while, I just said, well, I'll just stop soloing. And everybody was all upset. Well, where's the bass solo? Well, how come you're not soloing a bit? Okay, well, I'll go back to it. But I'm just really not a believer in anything called even lead guitar. The only reason they started determining that as a lead guitar because there was two, and one guy was maybe a little bit better, so he would solo, while the other guy played rhythm, and it was lead and rhythm. But you can't have lead. If you have only one guitar, is there a lead guitar? There would have to be a follow or rhythm guitar. So there's no other bass on stage there with me. There's only one, and To Be With You is a very typical bass line. All the Mr. Big songs, I would do a little unison or harmony thing with the guitarist as a added thing, like we did in Shy Boy, me and Steve Vai, various things like that. But it's only for musical flavor. The piano has two hands. The right hand generally is all the melodic and the top end of the arrangement, and the bottom hand are chords and bass lines. And one of my favorite musical experiences when I was very young, I've got a box set called The Well-Tempered Clavier. It's a Johann Sebastian Bach. It's 3 records in a box, 7 volumes, 7 boxes. So it's 21 records.
Wow.
2 sides per record, 42 sides of one guy playing the harpsichord. And you hear all the thousands of variations that you can do between what the right hand is doing and what the right hand is doing and what the left hand is doing. And it's quite fascinating to hear. Every time the right hand moves, it changes what you hear. I'm saying right hand. because I'm looking at myself in the video. Every time the left hand moves, it changes what you're hearing on the right hand. And that's what a bass does. If I'm playing in the key of A minor and go to F, you're still playing A minor, but it sounds completely different. That's why that's such a common key change in a lot of bands, because the guitarist can still solo in the key he's in. You go from A minor to F major, and suddenly the guitar sounds way more interesting than it would if you would have just
Yes.
stayed in A. So anyway, I've beaten this horse to death, but the whole idea of there being anything as such as a lead bass, I respectfully disagree with, and uh, there are so many other historical references to that.
Well, I get that. I think my point was I was probably poorly worded. Is I think I like that. I think all the artists you mentioned do that. Not enough bass players played enough, so it actually feels like there's two categories: the ones that stay in the back or the ones that really play like that.
Bass player from AC/DC is awesome. I love him. What a great player. Uh, a lot of young players, I say, learn Back in Black, front to back. What a great bass record. He's playing a lot of very simple notes, but he's old notes. It depends on the band. It depends on the song. Uh, the bass player from Judas Priest, Ian Hill. Great, great player. Love his playing. Bass player from Accept, Peter Baltus, I think his name was. Fantastic player. So it depends on the song.
Right, right.
I see that a lot with other aspects of online commentary, where if you have a four-string bass, if you don't play a five-string, well then you're not good, because five. Well, I play four-string, yeah, but five is one string more. Six is two strings more. So you must be way better player to play a six string than you are to play a four string. Complete nonsense. It's another kind of observation that I notice a lot, and it saddens me that the scope of people's understanding seems not to be what it could be. But to each his home.
I do think this song, to serve the song, is always the first thing. So that's probably what it comes down to always anyhow. Whatever you play, it's got to serve the song. And if you overplay it, it can be too much. That's the best part. So Mr. Big Wheel, and which was fantastic and probably an explosion for you. I think it's where people started really realizing the talents of all you guys collectively. And I mean, the success happened first Japan, and then they still loved you guys so much. And America slowly followed after the big hit.
Yeah. Again, sorry. I don't mean to be.
That's okay. It's okay.
I'm not being contentious, I swear, but it's just that wasn't the case.
No.
We did go to Japan, and there's this cliche thing that happens, and it would drive us crazy, because I say, hey, Billy, what's going on? I go, hey, we're going on tour. Japan? No, we're going to Germany. And then Japan? No, after that, we're going to South America. And then Japan? I go, slow down, back up, hold on a minute. No, we're not doing it for a long time. We'll get there eventually. But this idea that Mr. Big, Japan, Mr. Big, Mr. Japan. We had 100,000 people on the Santos beach outside of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Mm-hmm. In Italy, there was 5 Mr. Big copy bands at one time. Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway, Scotland, Ireland, England, Portugal, Spain, France, Switzerland, Russia, all over South America, and then Korea, the Philippines, Thailand, Singapore. I get more email from Indonesia than anywhere. So we love our Japanese friends, and they have been awesome to us, as many countries have. But unfortunately, it turns into a little bit of a cliche, and the cliche is based on somewhat of a falsehood too. People say, "Oh, a Western band goes over to Japan, they're going to automatically love you." A lot of bands went over, played one time, never got asked back again, never again.
Yeah,
because they thought, "Oh, we can just go up on stage and do whatever we want. They're just going to adore us." Never happened. But they're polite, so never again. So it's an interesting phenomenon. But we love the Japanese people, and it's been so enriching to be able to go there so many times. But like I said, we there's so many other places we've been that people sometimes overlook. We especially in Europe as well. It's quite awesome. Done some great. We played in the club the Beatles played in Hamburg, Germany, and when we played there, and we've done some great shows in England, some great situations there. And as an American musician that really was inspired by the Beatles to play in England is quite awesome. And my strings come from England; they're roto sound, so that's important too.
That must have been crazy. Well, yeah, see, but it's a learning experience for me. I well, just was like all the live albums. There's a ton of live albums all from Japan, so it just feels
Yeah,
like
there's a reason for that. We the Japanese label. Once we got done with a record, they were selling so well that they wanted something again before the next record came out. So we would record a live show, and they'd have that. It was their doing. It wasn't our doing. Atlantic Records didn't have anything to do with it. As a
yeah,
matter of fact, the first live record we did in Japan, we were on the Rush tour in America, and we got the word that Japan would like a live record. So we had our front of house mixer, Brad Maddox was his name, had a DAT tape, digital audio tape. Remember those?
I do.
And and he just had a feed off the live console. So for $7.95, we bought a DAT tape, put it in, hit record, and that was the live album, the first live album. We sold, and I think we sold over 500,000 units in Korea
Wow,
alone. And our budget for the record was $7.95. So
that's got to be the biggest profit ever made
probably.
of an album ever. That's fantastic. But that sounds a lot, though. I mean, live music and a good band, you don't have to do a lot to it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's sad now to see a lot of bands go out with laptops and uh, tracks.
Yeah.
I remember our first, we had a new sound person, and they came into our rehearsal, and we're rehearsing, and they go, so we stopped for a minute. They go, so what are you going to run your tracks through? We go, what tracks? You're playing with tracks, right? What about your vocals? I go, we sing. That's what we do.
Yeah.
In that same rehearsal, we were singing, just myself, Pat Torpey, and Paul Gilbert. We usually would rehearse before Eric would come down from San Francisco, just to make sure everything was done when he got there, makes
Yeah.
things go faster, figure out all the parts, and figure out what we're doing, what songs we're playing for an upcoming tour. We had, it might have been Tommy Lee and another guy from a band, a similar thing. They'd open the door while while we're playing. They go, what are you guys using for tracks? And I said, nothing. We're singing. And they're like, come on. So we do Green Tin is 60s Mine. Here we go. And we sing the harmony part. And finally, they believed us. So I think I understand if there's a complex instrumentation or orchestral things or extra keyboard things, you might need something like that.
Right.
But as far as actual singing and playing, I know Eddie Trunk made a point on his show about a couple of bands that were doing such. I went to see Rod Stewart recently. There wasn't any tracks, and the band was actually playing, and he was really singing, and he kicked ass. He sounded great. It was amazing, and it was pretty cool, pretty cool. And Cheap Trick was the opener, amazing, and they sounded fantastic. No tracks, great. Tom Peterson, killing.
I don't know what's going to happen. I think because the example was, I know we're talking about the laptop band couldn't play, whatever, because laptops, we got to get past that. I think everyone's got to start playing live. The Instagram feeds with the pictures of your guitars and your notebooks on the beach. People got to start playing. You're not going to fill a club. You need to just play music and sing without autotune and just play. I'm hoping
Yeah.
that it's going to fall out. That feels like it's an image. It's a media hype of what people want to be. They're not just not
Well,
playing.
it's true. Somebody's going to pull their iPhone out, and if you're a little off key that day, so warm up your voice before the show. Make sure you're not off key. And I croak out my lead vocals and or harmony vocals, and I work at it. I went to this great voice coach. His name was Ron Anderson. He passed away sadly recently. But he's the guy, when Bono blows his voice out on tour, they fly Ron in to fix him. He was the guy. He did
Oh wow.
Ozzy and Bjork and Axl, and everybody went to Ron Anderson. And what a difference it makes, man! Get somebody
Really?
to help you out. It's unreal. I mean, actors go to coaching before they do their moving. Boxers, MMA fighters, everybody gets you get some advice from somebody that knows what they're doing. And a good vocal coach is really a great asset. He helped me immensely, and my range went up, my accuracy. Now, I always sang, and even back in the old days, we didn't even have monitors. We would just turn the PA system a little bit so we could hear it on stage. And I got
Oh
taste
wow.
records then, and we're doing Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Three Dog Night, and it's on. So it can be done. So I just encourage people to
I'd
go
rather
the
hear anything,
extra
even a
mile.
mistake. I'd rather hear a mistake and just know it's live. I like that. I like the realness of it. You know what I mean? That's why you go to a show. You're not playing a record. If I want to hear the
Yeah,
record, I'll just listen to the
yeah,
record. You know?
exactly. There's going to be when I'm playing live. There's going to be wrong notes. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be missed cues. I didn't get to the mic in time for my vocal, and I like that too. I was really a fan of some very early live records. Uh, the first one was having a rave up with the Yardbirds. Uh, it was I think it was their first album, and they one side was their songs that you knew, "Heart Full of Soul," "I'm a
Yep.
Man," and the other side was the live versions, and it was unbelievable because they just went nuts. And "I'm a Man" was about 10 minutes long, and it's unbelievable playing. And Paul Samuel Smith on bass was killing, back and forth with Jeff Beck, playing, just incredible. And it was so exciting, but it wasn't perfect.
No.
But but it took me a long time, and it wasn't until many years later that I listened to it and noticed anything that could be referred to as an imperfection. But still, I love those parts. And then the Stones came out with "Got Live If You Want It." I heard later on they didn't like that record. It was a compilation of a couple different shows and even a
Right.
couple of live tracks that they faked audience on. But wow, what an exciting, oh, incredible record! And there's mistakes and wrong, wrong notes and whatever. But oh, it's just beautiful.
But that's why live bootleg things are always fun back in the day. I'm not talking like now Napster level. I'm talking about because that you knew it wasn't because it got to a certain point in the 80s where the live things were just an audience and then I'm just gonna go in and hit a few things, just punch me in for a few vocal things here. Next, you know, it's not really a live album.
Yeah,
You roll back to the 60s, you know you're getting a truck. Even Zeppelin, they got the mobile studio, they're setting up the mics, you get what you get, you're hearing some missed notes. I love that, you know.
yeah, me too. And I got over 2 terabytes in my iTunes. Uh,
Holy moly.
well curated. All the cover art, all the titles, everything is right. And back in the day, in the late '80s and '90s and early '90s, there were some great bootleg shops. Oddly enough, in Japan, there was one, and they were so on it. We'd do a night at the Budokan, get up the next day, and have a fan walk me down to the bootleg shop because I couldn't find my way. They're so sweet. I love them. I get there, and in front of the shop, they've already got a display of last night's show on CD with cover art for sale.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
And I loved it because I wanted a recording of the show. So they would always let us take whatever we wanted because they're selling our stuff and they felt,
You
it
could
makes
close them down
them
probably.
So I went in, I got some amazing bootlegs. All the Robin Trower, the record with Day of the Eagle, all those songs played live with some different arrangements and different lyrics too. Hendrix, the Band of Gypsies rehearsals, uh, just the Deep Purple, was it Made in Japan, their live record?
Yeah.
That was a compilation of 5 shows. And I got all the other 5 shows from
Holy,
that tour. Pretty amazing. A lot of versions of songs that they didn't use. There's an Ian Pace drum solo that is one of the best drum solos I've ever heard, and it wasn't on Made in Japan. So it was really interesting to go back and hear imperfections. I got the Birds demo for 8 Miles High.
Wow.
One of my favorite songs ever. I love that 12-string guitar. I'm a 12-string fanatic to this day. That compressed tone of that 12 strings, unbelievable. First record I ever bought, 8 Miles High by the Birds. And you should hear the demo. It's a catastrophe.
Is it?
The note, the demo's, but they were fleshing it out. So to hear that, and a lot of young players and young writers, I'd like to let them know about that, because they think, well, I got to write a song and it's got to be perfect from the very
Right. Well,
beginning.
yeah,
What
that's
if it isn't fabulous? And what if I write a song and it isn't great? I should probably quit. No, everybody just you slug through it. It's awful. You blah blah lyrics. You play wrong notes. Next step, next step, next step, and you've got Yesterday by the Beatles. So all this stuff happens. But it's a very enlightening thing to hear how a lot of these songs began, and then knowing how they ended up.
the demo process is the best for me when I hear those, because you hear it's like it was a different song, different words that you're used to. The whole thing's just totally different. You're like, wait a minute, I know that riff from another song. Like I can't think of some artists recently. I heard their stuff. I'm like, early on, I'm like, I'm hearing all these riffs that have eventually evolved into other albums of yours. Like it was like a rough demo, early stuff. You're hearing it everywhere. It's great to hear.
Exactly. I got the Boston demo for their first record, and the title of it. I remember I had it on vinyl back in the day, but I found I all my vinyl went missing. But I found it on CD in Germany or Japan. I mean, there's another bootleg shop in Germany as well that was quite great. But the title of the record is "We Found It in the Trash Can." Honest, and somebody found their original demo tape in a trash can, and that was it. It's almost identical to the record. The sound is not quite as dynamic, but amazingly, that demo was very much how that record sounded. So it goes both ways. You hear some demos that really have it together. I had the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway demos and rehearsals.
What?
Unbelievable.
Oh, that.
Are you a Genesis fan?
Huge. I got a huge vinyl collection. I'm a huge
too,
Yes.
right?
I'm a huge Yes and Genesis fan. I love all the versions of them. Both of those guys, and Jethro Tull actually. It is like no version I don't like. You know what I mean? Because I love when an artist can do a different album, a different lineup. I love if they do an album that's totally different. It sucks. Good for them, because you're an artist.
Yeah.
You're doing something. You're being creative. If you want to do the same albums, that's cool. That's you're an artist. But if you want to do something different, more power to you.
Man. But the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway demos and tons of other live stuff, but pretty great, pretty awesome.
So many brilliant pieces of music right there. I mean, there's just Genesis. The name is a perfect thing. There's just so much from that time period from them. It's like the Beatles of Prague. I mean, the Beatles. I love the Beatles' first albums, but
here's a funny thing. Wait a minute. I'll see if I can get. If you can hear me, it's just my little bass through a practice amp. But you remember.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that song?
Yeah.
Attack of the Giant Hogweed?
Yeah.
You're familiar with it?
Yeah. Yep.
But isn't that funny?
I hear that a lot. Yeah.
I don't know. But I remember I read one of the Van Halen biographies, I think by Greg Renoff, a great book, great author too, that Eddie went into Tower Records because they were called Genesis before they were Van Halen. And then he saw in the bin there's another Genesis. Did he take that record home and get that? Who knows?
You never know. Or he heard it, didn't even know he heard it. You never know. It's a lot of things,
Yeah, it could have been completely, but it doesn't matter. Eddie is still the greatest, and we love him no matter what. And
did you ever get to do anything like meet him and like just play with him at all? Like on his
Yeah, we toured
on?
with him.
Well, that's right. You did the being on tour. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we
With
did about 30 shows. I went to his house with him and his brother in recent years, relatively recent. And we jammed. We talked about doing something. We talked about doing something together since 1980, really. And what a wonderful guy. He's just what a dreadful loss for the music world. He's
and for Wolfie to lose a dad like that. To me, that's what I see. I see everybody back off. He lost his dad. I love Eddie and I miss his music,
oh,
but
the Wolfie's been killing it lately too. He's so
right?
great. I
Holy
love him, and he's
Toledo.
just really, and he really wants to be himself too. He's not trying to be his dad, and it's a beautiful thing. He's a good kid. I
I
played
agree.
with Wolfie, but not music. We were coming home from the Jason Becker benefit,
Yeah.
and Ed asked me if I wanted to fly with him. So I went, and Wolfie was there. He wanted to sleep. Ed wanted to sleep, and Wolfie was a little kid. I mean, he's a little tiny kid. And so I got some paper and a pen and a flight attendant, and we were drawing animals and doing number games and words. And Ed would look up once in a while, like, "Keep going, bro. I'm getting a good sleep over here." so, so because of that, I could. It's a joke, really, but I can say I'm the only guy that's played with every member of Van Halen. So I played with Wolfie, but I played with Gary Sharon, with Sammy, Dave, of course, jam with Ed and Al, and played with Michael a couple times. Just did jam with Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony in Chicago at a private show. So I'm the only guy that's played with every member of Van
Wow,
Halen.
that's pretty good. Well, they're all great. You got Dave during his best period. You got, Dave had to split vocals that no one was really hip to, the way his voice used to split. That was the best time for him. Sammy is still a fantastic singer. I mean, and Michael, great
Yeah,
singer.
Sammy's right on.
Talk
He
about a
knows,
singing bass player too, Michael, right?
so great, really, and a wonderful guy. Probably one
Oh
of the
yeah,
nicest. He's in the Greg Bissonette class of fine, wonderful, nice human beings. And Greg is the benchmark for me. He's such a great guy. And there's a lot of people I know in that stratum, and very grateful for it.
it's a shame Greg isn't up there a little bit bigger too. I wish Greg was a little more known. He's a great player too. I think, publicly, what I'm saying, commercially, he's not as big as I think he should be as a player.
He's playing with Ringo.
I'm saying, what I'm saying. Like that's like music people know. Music people know the drummers. Oh, he's that guy. But I know your name. Like people that don't even listen to music will know like you are or Steve Vai. People should know like his name like that. I'm saying that
No, I
big.
see what you mean. Of course, yeah, yeah. He's certain, but he's some people are more just that's just kind of the way nature goes. But every
I think he's
musician,
fantastic. I think he's fantastic. I love him.
oh, he's great. He's really great, and he is hilarious,
Is he?
and he is really one of the finest human beings, the sweetest, giving, honest, genuine, just fantastic. Myself, Steve, and Greg, and Brett Tuggle, who was the Eat 'em and Smile keyboard player. We still, sadly, we lost Brett recently, but me, Greg, and Steve still keep in touch. And man, you should hear the stories. It's pretty hilarious.
I bet you guys do. You guys had good chemistry right out of the gate too. So that was, fantastic sound.
Say
When you
again?
come in, you guys had a great chemistry come out of the gate as a band.
Yeah, yeah. And I've gone back and played with Steve a bunch, done some tours with him on a solo tour, and I just did his camp, the Vi Academy. It was quite a great experience for everybody. And Tommy Emmanuel joined us. If you've seen him play guitar,
He's ridiculous. He is
who
so good.
us mere mortals here. He's so great, and what a great guy! He's hilarious, so fantastic.
It makes that much better when everyone you love is so nice. You just want to hug them. Like it's just that much better when your favorite artist is great. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes you don't even want a chance catching him on a bad day and spoiling your view of them. I was in LA years ago, and I took a young lady to dinner. We're waiting for our car for the valet thing, and there's some old man standing next to me, and a little old guy, and I wasn't even paying much attention. I looked back again, and it was Jimmy Stewart, and I thought, I'm not going to say anything. I let him go because he would have said, "Well, leave me alone, young fella." And he would have been pissed. He wouldn't have. He's a sweet guy, but I just thought. And then years earlier, I was in playing with TALAS in Buffalo, and Lou Reed was in town, and we we're a huge Bowie Lou Reed Mata Hoople, that
Right.
whole or that glam thing that came out for a while, about 74 or so, 75. And we, uh, Lou Reed was in town, and there was one hotel most bands stayed at. It was before everybody really was like, you know, all over anybody that had any fame. It was
Right.
still kind of an open thing. And I called the Holiday Inn. I go, oh, yeah, can I speak to Lou Reed, please? I go, and all of a sudden the phone is ringing. Like, holy shit, they voted. The guy goes, hello? I go, hello, Lou? He goes, yeah. I go, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you, man. My name's Billy. I got a band here in town. I want to invite you out. And we just want to say we're huge fans of you, man. Sorry we can't come to see your show tonight. He goes, wow, thanks a lot, man. That was really nice. That's great. If I get off early, I'll be sure to come out to your show. And all right, thanks so much. What a pleasure. Okay, nicest guy ever. It was so great. Never came down, but
No,
I
but
know
that's cool.
touring
That's a
now, when you're done, it's impossible to do those kind of things. But it was a wonderful guy.
I think, and I'm gonna say two people I met at once, and actually Steve Vai ties into it. When I was in college and it was for recording, I went to saw in the mall. Eric Clapton was in the mall in Atlanta. He had like a huge bodyguard, and this like beautiful like model like woman. It totally stood out in the mall. Like Clapton's a much smaller guy than you'd think because you always think people are huge. Like I know you're a tall guy, but Clapton's a much shorter than I thought he was. He had like a frilly jacket on. He stood out. He was in the sneaker store, like he was in Foot Locker. He went into Foot Locker. And it was the weirdest thing seeing that. So I went and I brought a tape. I went my last of my money. I grabbed a tape from the record store. And I went in. I said, I introduced myself. And I shook his hand. I said, "Could you sign this, please?" And he's like, "Yeah, no." And I was crushed. But I respectfully said, "Okay." But then I was like, "Well, that's how it goes." But then I interned for Relativity and In Effect Records, and that's when Steve Vai's album came out, his biggest one. So he came into town and he met with all the big wigs, but he sat with all of us interns on the floor. First time I ever saw him have like a vegetarian pizza, and he had a beer with everybody and hung out with all the interns. So from that point
Great.
on, that was the bar for how people should be treated from Steve Vai. That was it from there. And that was in 1990,
Yeah,
I
Steve.
think that's the album. Passion and Warfare. That was it. Like I was like, that's it. That's how you talk to people.
I agree. Yeah, uh, Steve is also in that strata of people that they really care a lot about their fans, and he's
And the
righteous.
energy from him, just like being around him, you just felt like a calmness. There's just something about Steve when you're around him that you know, and just
Very positive person.
yeah, that's pretty
Very
what it
positive.
is.
Yeah, I
And it was
saw we did the Eric Clapton Crossroads Festival. With me and Steve did it. But there's a YouTube video of it. We're all playing each other guitars and stuff.
I'll have to look it up. Yeah.
And yeah, look up Steve Vai on Crossroads. It's hilarious. And so I met Eric then, and he was very kind. And then I was with my wife in London, in the middle of some little square area where they got a lot of shops. And there he was, just kind of wandering around, lost. And I went up to him to talk, and I could tell he was like, oh, but Eric, it's me, Billy. He's like, oh, he was okay. So, but but it is really true when you're out in public sometimes, depending on your level of notoriety, and that
Mhm.
varies from where you are. Uh, in Indonesia, I got to be careful where I go because it's a lot of people, or Japan, or some other places. Not so much anymore, but back in the '90s for sure. So it can get overwhelming, get out of hand. Also sometimes. So, and the problem is sometimes when you sign one thing, other people see you.
Right.
People don't even know who you are. They want to come over and get who is he? I don't know. Make them sign it. And so it can be. You got to smile your way through it. And I've never been in a situation where I snapped and said, "Hold
I
on."
can see it happening. I can see it being too much too. And even with that, I wasn't mad at him. I was just bummed out because I was a student. That was like my last $10. And I already had like the album and I bought the cassette just to have him sign it. And it was like the night he was playing the Omni. So like it wasn't like he was like being discreet about it. Like it was like you're literally in a place where everyone's gonna see you. You might as well just have a strobe light on you. And I also think that was from the time he was, the drugs were really bad. And I think his son, it was
Oh
from the time
yeah,
his son died. So he was in a really bad space afterwards. So it wasn't like I'm like, oh, bad about him.
funny. Yeah, I know.
But
I just
it's just
For
different
me
when you meet
personally,
people.
if I can't be in the mood, and I stay inside, or I'll put my hat down and walk through the wall.
Well, and you
Funny.
played with a lot though. So actually, with Mr. Big, is there any truth to the rumors that you guys might do something at some point?
We'd love to. I'm not sure what. We went out with a drummer. after Pat passed away,
Matt,
the drummer that played with us on stage while Pat was with us, because Pat couldn't do the kit anymore. We brought a guy in to play drums, so
I miss
Pat could
Pat.
still sing. And Matt Starr, just a great,
Yep.
great guy, great drummer. Uh, but we went out with just Matt after Pat passed away, and Matt is amazing. It has nothing to do with Matt.
No,
He's
I
great,
know.
but it was just wasn't the same because Pat wasn't there, you know. So we just said at that point, it was years ago. We just said, let's just leave it. And but we, we're talking a little bit again recently about, maybe at some point we could go out and do something. We don't know what. So we'll possibly see about it. But we're
Can
all
be
good
interesting.
friends. And we're all talking. Eric's out on tour. Paul's always working, and I'm here and there too. So, I love that band. Everybody in it, and that was an amazing
It is,
adventure.
it is
I always
fun.
tell people have a number one hit someday because it changes your life completely. It's pretty great.
It's pretty awesome. I'm gonna say I had Eric on like last year, and he was telling some funny stories. I know Eric always has some crazy stories, but one of the best things he told me was very touching, and still to this day, he says, you guys hadn't spoken for a while. It was probably like the impetus for like you guys getting back together at one point. Him reaching out, he was looking for a bass for his kid, and you were like a left-handed bass or something. And I think you went
I
and you got the
remember
bass
that.
format, and you sent it to him. And he's telling me in the story, he's like, "Yeah, I hadn't heard of him." He goes, "So get the tape in." He goes, "I get the bass for my kid." The kid's playing. I'm trying to talk to my kid about this. You got this from Billy, and his kid's like, "Shh, shh, 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 shh." And his kid's shutting him down because he's listening to you on VHS, and he's hearing your voice, and it's like it just really just kind of hit home. So that whole moment was such a great thing to hear from him in that
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
It was just such a touching moment.
Yeah,
I love that.
we had great times in that band, and our worst times were generally better than most bands' good times. So,
Yeah.
so we butted heads on a few points, but generally we it was like and there were never any drug alcohol problems in the band, which made life simpler.
Right.
And it was a great thing, man. We had some laughs. My God, we get together now to tell stories. And a lot of times when I do an interview like this, people say, "Oh, tell us a story." And I go, I can, but it's kind of more performance art. I need a glass of red wine, a couple maybe, and sitting around a table, and then the stories start coming hot and heavy. So it's kind of good that you can't really document them in video. They're going to try someday. You can't really videotape or write them down because you lose so much in the written
Or the
translation.
story. Yeah.
But yeah, and I get asked a lot about doing a book. I may someday. I may someday, but that would be cool. But I'm always worried about how am I going to relate this story in print, where I got to kind of stand up and yeah, the guy came over. And, it's kind of a
Oh,
performance art. It's funny.
it is. It could be a long story. I mean, yeah. Eric told me one. He said he actually felt bad. He said he was going through a period where he was going up in the air and he was spitting water up in the air and it was hitting like the drums and the cymbals and the guy did the drums was getting kind of mad at him for messing it up and stuff. And he was doing it one day and he spit the water for something and you came out and you slipped on it and
Oh
you
yeah,
fell and there was a big
yeah,
hush over everybody.
yeah. It was great because it's the only time I ever fell on stage. I was
Yeah,
like,
it was,
wow, finally, after 30, when it was 30 years then, 50 years now. After 30 years,
he
I
wasn't
finally.
recounting it as a funny story. He was just like, yeah, he was telling me his whole thing about the spitting thing. And he goes, and then this happened. And I didn't know. I felt, then, he shared that one. And he told this story about, Paul, where the opening band was, you guys would come out dressed like the sleepy time guy with the candle and the long sleep dress or whatever. And the opening band grabbed his little sleep dress thing and tied it up over his head on the stage to Paul. And he couldn't untie it. So it was like his underwear on stage and stuff. Those
Oh,
are the two
I don't.
stories he
I
shared.
remember
Yeah.
something vaguely like that. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
you guys are pretty
We had
funny.
a riot. It was great. And
You got it.
touring with Rush, that was just an amazing thing. I was never, and I gotta preface this because so many people take it the wrong way. I was never a Rush fan, only because there's only 24 hours in the day. I'm playing every night of the week, doing
Yeah.
21 nights in a row one time, 3 full shows in one day. And people think, yeah, did you hear the new record by this or hear the new? No, I don't have time to listen to records. I'm playing all the time. So I never was a Rush fan, more just because I didn't have time to sit down and listen to their records. Some bands I did at certain times of my life. We
Right.
spoke about Genesis earlier and some things, but there's just so many hours in a day, and you can't. There's a
I
billion
hear you.
bands,
It's getting
so I
worse.
didn't know much about them. And when we opened up for them, I got to hear them every night, and I
You're blown
absolutely
away.
became a fan. Really, really, just a great band and the nicest people you could ever imagine. Really sweet people. And so touring with them was just perfect. You're in a huge arena. There's perfect catering set up. You got a giant dressing room. It doesn't get any better. It's really really great. Well, it does get better if you're Rush because you're headlining for sure. But they were just so nice to us, and we had so many great times with them, and so many great storytelling moments, and it was that was a wonderful thing. Really, losing Neil was devastating for all of us, for everybody. I think in the world, it was a terrible thing, and we love those guys completely.
It's hard. Everyone's going now. I mean,
Yeah,
and I mean, obviously you guys lost Pat, and then and actually you had, and then recently when you just did TALAS again, you lost Phil. You know.
yeah, that was the whole thing is bittersweet because we're so happy with the response to the record, and Phil sang his ass off. He was so great. What a great performance. And then we lost him soon after the record was done. And he was at the. I was in Nashville, in my home studio. He was in Toronto in a studio with our engineer Russ, and we would use Zoom or FaceTime like we are now. And I'd have myself, Phil, and Russ on camera for talkback. Then we had special software that would deliver to my music computer, my playback system, real time
Real
of the
time. That's that. Yeah.
unbelievable. I don't know how I can't understand the physics of how that works at all, but it's in real time. And so I could sit there and produce the vocals while Phil was at the mic. And Phil would step up to the mic, hit it, nail it. Fucking great, 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 great. Once in a while, though, I noticed he's a little scatterbrained, which caught my attention a little bit, but wasn't any big thing. Like he'd sing the wrong lyric. Go back. Okay, let's try it again. The lyric is so and so. Okay, sing the wrong lyric again.
Yeah.
Cross out whatever you got there and write in the new lyric. Sometimes that helps with the singer. And so finally you get it. So I realized after the record was finished, because we didn't know how bad it was.
What time was this? Because I know he did another band too. He recorded with Don from originally from Black Sheep, that Lips Turn Blue. He did
The time frame, but it was at the end of us. The only way I would know it is at the end of us doing the record. I don't know if it's spring,
yeah.
summer, fall, or winter, whatever. But anyway, we were. I lost my train of thought.
Oh, sorry.
So we he knew we didn't. He knew that his cancer had come out of remission, and he knew he was in trouble. We didn't. No, we knew he had experienced something, but we thought he was okay now. And so now I look back and him walking up to that mic and delivering like he did, knowing what he knew, shouldering the burden of knowing I might be in trouble here, makes it all the more spectacular. So his performance on 1985 is great for many reasons. The courage he had to just get in there and hit it, nail it, even though I don't know if I could do that. If I'm playing some record and, as I'm, okay, let's do the bass parts. They go, oh, by the way, and somebody gives me some horrible news. Geez, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's amazing. I couldn't do it. I can't function with anything. My world's
Yeah.
got to be right to do anything. I heard he did a band Lips Turn Blue with Don from Black Sheep, and that's how I thought that was his last album. So when I heard this come out, I was like, oh, another album that he
Yeah,
did.
it was kind of a weird thing. I don't know when he did that, and the guy that had the record wanted to get it out quick before our record, and it was.
I didn't know. See, I didn't know all that part. I just knew that I heard the album. I heard who he was and what he's from, and I was like, oh, this is excellent. Feels great. I was so glad to hear him do something, and that hadn't been out yet, so I didn't even know. So to
Yeah,
me, from the outside, I just see him do one album, and oh my god, there's one other extra bonus as a fan. He gets to do a Talos album too. It's great, for a
yeah.
legacy at least. That's a good album.
Yeah. Well, he was quite a prolific songwriter and quite a just a great overall, everything. Wonderful guy, great performer, singer, writer. It was a terrible loss, and we're going to try to do a show if we can. I'm not sure how we're going to do it. We got a couple singers that are
That's always
can
the best way to
possibly
do it.
fill very big shoes.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens. I hope we can.
Cool. I just want to ask you two things. You got kind of so anything with Sons of Apollo coming up? That's another group. You
No,
fantastic.
I think the individual guys are Mike's out touring, Jeff is out touring, Derek has a couple of other projects, so we'll see. Hopefully, but new Winery Dogs is done.
That's what I'm going to say about them. Almighty Winery Dogs.
Yeah,
Richie
Winery
and
Dogs is
Mike.
done. It's I spoke with Eddie Trunk the other day, and I know Richie secretly played him the record, and he loved it. So he's a good barometer for us because he's
Yeah.
been very instrumental in helping us, and also was the initial seed planted for Mike and I to go talk with Richie, and we're glad we did. But the new record is done. The album cover work is done. The credits are done. It's mixed, mastered. They're booking the tour. I saw some dates already. I can't announce them because the promoters, if you announce it before they do, they get all mad. So I can't say anything, but there's
I
tons
respect
of
that.
dates. And we're
I'm just,
just,
as a fan, I'm just happy to hear this. I'm
yeah,
excited.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a good year next year, I think. I love playing with the Winery Dogs. The initial version of Talus, the one that seemed to last so long. There are about 9 versions of Talus, actually, by actual count. Uh, uh, we were a 3-piece band, so I got used to that 3-piece thing. And Grand Funk Railroad, ZZ Top, the
Yep.
three-piece band. So, and Winery Dogs is really cool as a 3-piece. I look out and it's easy for me to see Richie and Mike. If there's another guy or 2 other guys in there, I got to figure out who I'm
What's
looking
going
at.
on?
You can kind of see both of them in one scene. And on Mike on drums, we got this bass and drum ESP where we're locked together. It's really great. And Richie sings his ass off. He sings like a bird.
He is so good.
And he's not using a pick anymore. His
He's
fingers,
not.
it's unbelievable.
He is a madman, and the fact that you guys are did some stuff in Mr. Big together, so adding Mike to it is fantastic. But yeah, like Richie, what do you do? He just did the album, what, 50 songs or something? Like he is such a maniac with songwriting. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he's
they're
great.
good. They're good songs. He's not a bad. They're not like
Oh, I
throwaway.
know.
Just do it. He's a good songwriter.
Yeah, he's really excellent. So, but we're looking forward to that. New Winery Dogs. Right on. That's a beautiful
Awesome, man.
thing.
Well, thank you. Well, and on that, I want to thank you. This is awesome. Thanks for giving me some time today.
Right on. Thank you, Sean. Like I said.